So today's movie watching was a very timely film in terms of what went down in America this weekend, but also just timely in general for many reasons. This was Sabaah Folayan and Damon Davis's Whose Streets, which is about Ferguson post the death of Michael Brown. Fittingly, it was released on the right around on the 3-year anniversary of his death, and Sabaah Folayan was in Ferguson as or she came after the killing to document on the ground. And Damon Davis was a St. Louis-based artist and filmmaker, so the two of them were there from day one, practically recording. And this movie uses a mixture of things that they shot, as well as social media captured by those who were there as well. There's several YouTube accounts credited at the end as where some of the footage is from. It also uses chilling news reports. I say chilling because it shows sort of how one-sided the news coverage of this was. And I remember I don't have television. I haven't had television for a long time, so I get my news from the internet. I watch recasts, and I specifically during Ferguson remember watching a lot of videos from people on the ground and tweets from people on the ground. And I think I got a very different idea of what was happening there than most of my family. And I remember having a lot of clashes with both the very conservative side of my family and some of the very quote-unquote liberal sides of my family. And this documentary really shows how that can happen, because if you get all your information from one source, you're not necessarily getting the whole picture. And there's a great scene in this documentary where they talk to some people who were there about the property destruction, and they don't discuss why it happened, who did it, what it was like just prior and just after, and sort of the ramifications of only showing the property destruction and not showing anything else in terms of the picture. It's very similar to the scene in Step that I watched on Friday. So the documentary follows several activists. Hands Up United co-founder Tori Russell, Brittany Farrell, and David Witt, who is a member of Cop Watch, as well as several other people who were there, including the rapper whose name I'm forgetting, Tef Poe, I think was the name, who was tweeting, using his social media presence to really document what was happening. And it was done in 5 pieces, 5 sections, each highlighted by a quote from a civil rights leader or artist. So there was a quote from MLK, there was a quote from Maya Angelou, there was a quote from Langston Hughes. They were all really great quotes. And then the documentary ends sort of with these very incendiary words that just happen to be the Declaration of Independence. And I just thought it was a really interesting way to utilize thought to mix in with the actions of these people. And I think what's interesting is that the activists that they talk with are very well educated people who have read a lot in terms of Black thought. And I think that there are a lot of the race problems. I mean, obviously there are a lot of race problems in this country for a lot of reasons, but I think one issue that separates people in a way and separates the way we think about things in a way is art, and the art that we consume, and whether we consume art that is made for us, by us, or whether we consume art made by other people who are living different kinds of lives, so that we can get a picture into that. And I think that's really important, and I think a lot of people don't do that. And then that adds to people's inability to think the way other people think. So then they see actions and they're like, well, I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, yes, you're not them. And you don't have the same life experience, so of course you wouldn't behave the same way. I also found the use of the cop who did the killing, that interview that he did, super chilling, where he basically says he's not a racist, and you're like, most people who are racist don't think they're racist because it's an internal bias that you don't, unless you look and focus on it, you don't realize you have it, and he clearly does not realize he had it. This had a lot of energy. I loved the way that they utilized their own footage with found footage, but with the social media footage, with news footage, all coalesced into one really solid story. I left it thinking I need to finish all this reading. I have, like, if you can see back there, like, where is it? Oh, there we go. See that giant pile of books? A good deal of that is books that I bought post Ferguson, actually, to sort of become more intersectional in my reading. And I think a lot of people need to do more of that. And unfortunately, in this country, we keep getting less and less intellectual, and it causes more and more splitting. And then we've like, contrasting the story of this documentary with the violence that erupted in Virginia this weekend, where the protests in Ferguson were about the loss of life, a life that can never be replaced, and many, many lives that have been taken that won't be replaced. And the violence this weekend was because a racist statue was coming down. It was about property and about the symbolism of that property. And it just shows that there is such a different mindset about what's important and what has value, and that's terrifying. There's a great sequence with one of the activists that talks about the gas station that burned and how it's property. Property can be replaced, but a life can't. And that was a really interesting spin, I think, on that part of the incident. But there were other activists that really talked about how they were there for each other, not because they were against something, but because they wanted to be there for each other. And that sense of community was so important in this documentary, and so strong, that it was just, you could feel the way they were feeling, and the hurt that they were feeling, and the strength they were getting from each other. I really recommend this documentary. It's from Magnolia Pictures right now, so it's out in theaters, but it'll probably be on VOD relatively soon. Magnolia usually puts their films on VOD pretty fast. You should definitely check this out. I think it's wide, or it's close to wide. It's in a lot of theaters. It's in at least 3 theaters here in Atlanta. And just watch it, do some reading. There's a great documentary, or great book from Justin Lin, I think is his name. It's called We Gonna Be All Right, and he's the guy who wrote this really great book on hip hop, and it's a post. I think he wrote it post Ferguson as well. And interesting enough, the film ends with the Kendrick Lamar song that book is named after, and I feel like they would be interesting companion pieces to each other. I read that book last fall, I think. It's good. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of work. I also particularly enjoyed the way that there was a scene where one of the activists really talks about how you can mobilize and educate people using your social media. And I think a lot of people like to think social media is useless, but it can bring people together, and it can be used for such a strong reason and for such powerful voices that I think I'm grateful that I'm able to access so many different points of view and so many different strong, beautiful voices through Twitter in particular. And it was nice to see that was acknowledged in this documentary. So check this documentary out. It's a tough one. It's essential. It's really good. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the people who would need to see it won't see it, or they would see it and not glean anything from it. It's also there. If you go on IMDb, people are purposefully downvoting it. So if you have an IMDb profile, maybe go in there after you've seen it and vote it up so that people who haven't seen it, who are giving it ones because they're straight up not internally racist but just racist, don't win, because that'd be nice. This was Whose Streets, directed by Sabaah Folayan and co-directed by Damon Davis, and I highly recommend it.